The wind howled outside the glass domes of Haven 12, a small colony far from Earth. It was a quiet place where people worked hard, lived simply, and tried to forget the wars that once burned through the stars. In the colony's medical bay, Dr. Claire Wren worked through the long night, waiting for a birth that had gone far longer than expected. The mother, Anna Miles, lay on the bed, pale but strong. She smiled weakly through the pain. "Just tell me he's all right," she whispered. Claire nodded and focused. The child was coming fast now, and moments later, a thin cry filled the sterile room. Relief washed over her as she lifted the newborn into the light. The baby's skin was warm and soft, a normal, healthy color. For a second, Claire smiled. Then the child opened his eyes. The room went still. His eyes were not blue, not brown, not any color Claire had ever seen. They were gold, bright and glowing like molten metal, like two small suns flickering behind a thin veil. They seemed to move, alive and warm, as if light itself lived inside them. The nurse gasped and stepped back. What's wrong with his eyes?" Claire didn't answer. She could feel the faint hum in the air, a low vibration that seemed to come from the child himself. The medical equipment flickered. A monitor sparked. The lights dimmed, and the air smelled faintly of ozone, like after a lightning strike. "It's just the stress," Claire said softly, though her voice trembled. "The system's sensitive tonight." But she knew it wasn't the system. It was him. Anna reached out weakly, unaware of the tension. "Can I hold him?" Claire hesitated for a heartbeat, then placed the baby in her arms. The glow in his eyes dimmed slightly, fading into a soft gold warmth. The hum in the air eased. The baby stopped crying, as if calm in his mother's touch. Anna smiled, tears in her eyes. "He's perfect." Claire tried to smile back, but her hands shook. She stepped away and checked the monitors. Everything was normal again. Heartbeat steady. Oxygen stable. But the scanner displayed something strange, a reading she had never seen. The genetic code displayed symbols outside human parameters. It wasn't wrong. It was different. She leaned closer. Her screen blinked, then went black. The system refused to record. "What's going on?" the nurse asked, her voice trembling. Before Claire could answer, the door slid open with a hiss. 3 men entered, tall, silent, dressed in black with the silver insignia of the Galactic Council. They carried no medical tools, only small silver data pads. "Dr. Wren?" the man in front asked. His voice was calm and clipped. "You delivered the child?" Claire straightened slowly. "Who are you?" The man ignored the question and held up a tablet. "By order of the Galactic Council, all data concerning this birth is classified. All staff involved are under silence mandate. The infant will be transferred for examination." Anna clutched her baby closer. "No. He's my son." The man's gaze didn't change. "This is not a request." Claire stepped between them. "You can't take a newborn. He's harmless." The man's tone sharpened just slightly. "Doctor, the council does not issue orders without reason. The child's readings were detected through inter-colony networks before your system shut down. He carries a frequency not seen in 10,000 years. Claire felt her chest tighten. "A frequency?" The man looked at her with cold eyes. "Do you know the name Skyborn?" She froze. It was an old myth, one of the ancient stories humans told about creatures that once shaped the stars with fire and light. The Skyborn. Dragons of the void. But no one believed they were real. "You can't be serious," she said. The man didn't answer. He simply nodded to his team. "Prepare the transport." Anna screamed and held the baby tighter. Claire felt something deep inside her snap. Without thinking, she moved. "You can't take him," she said again. "He's not a specimen." The man frowned. "Dr. Wren, you are in violation of direct council order." She took a slow breath, her mind racing. At least let me stabilize him before transport. He's too young for hypersleep." The man hesitated, then gave a small nod. 10 minutes. When they left the room, Claire turned to the nurse. "Seal the west corridor. Now." "Doctor." "Now." The nurse ran. Claire hurried to the bed. "Anna, listen to me," she whispered. "You have to trust me. I can't stop them from coming back, but I can hide him." Anna's eyes were wide with fear, but she nodded. Please keep him safe." Claire wrapped the baby in a thermal blanket, then turned toward the back wall where a narrow maintenance hatch led to the frozen surface outside. She had used it once before, years ago, during an emergency drill. It opened to the dunes beyond the dome, cold, dark, and empty. She lifted the baby. "His name is Evan," Anna said softly, her voice trembling. Claire looked down at the child. His eyes were closed now, calm and peaceful. "Evan," she repeated quietly. "I'll keep him safe. I promise." The door hissed open again. The guards were back. Claire didn't look. She opened the hatch and slipped into the dark tunnel, heart pounding, breath sharp in the cold air. The alarm began to sound behind her. Outside, the night was endless. The ice plains stretched to the horizon, shimmering under the pale red sun. The wind cut against her face, but she kept walking. The baby stirred and opened his golden eyes again. For a moment, the light around them changed. The snow reflected gold instead of white. And far above, beyond the thin clouds, something flickered in the sky, like a pulse of light answering him. Claire stopped, staring up. "What are you?" she whispered. The baby cooed softly, the glow fading back to calm warmth. Claire smiled weakly and kept walking. Behind her, the colony alarms grew fainter until they were only a hum against the wind. She didn't know how long she walked before finding the small research outpost she had once helped build. She activated its old systems, warming the air and wrapping the baby in fresh blankets. Outside the window, the stars burned quietly. She looked at the sleeping child and whispered, "They won't find you here. Not for a long time." As the outpost power came online, one of the external monitors flickered to life. A faint signal shimmered across the screen, a pulse echoing from somewhere far beyond the colony's borders. The machine registered it as unknown energy. But Claire could see a pattern. 3 bursts, then a pause. 3 again. Then one long hum. It almost sounded like a heartbeat. She didn't know it then, but the message was not random. It came from deep space, from something ancient that had slept for millennia. The Skyborn had heard the call. And for the first time in 10,000 years they began to wake. 15 years had passed since that night under the frozen sky. The outpost where Claire Wren had hidden the child was no longer filled with fear but with quiet life. Evan Miles had grown into a tall, curious boy with calm manners and golden eyes that glowed faintly when the light was low. He never knew why Claire always asked him to keep his hood up when supply traders visited or why she turned off the communication panels every time someone hailed the outpost. She only told him, "You're special, Evan." Some people wouldn't understand. Evan didn't question much. He liked the quiet. He spent most days fixing old machines and nights looking at the stars through the observatory dome. The night sky fascinated him. Sometimes he thought the stars were watching him back. He often dreamed of strange places. Worlds made of silver clouds. Mountains that floated. And great shapes with wings of fire soaring across the sky. In his dreams they always looked at him, not with hunger but with something like pride. When he woke, his heart raced, and the air in his room shimmered faintly gold. One morning, as Claire worked on an old transmitter, she watched him carefully. "You dreamed again, didn't you?" Evan hesitated. "Yes. They feel so real." "What did you see?" she asked. He thought for a moment. "A place made of light. And voices. They weren't speaking, but I could understand them." Claire nodded slowly. She tried to hide the worry in her eyes. The same signal she had seen 15 years ago, the one that pulsed from the stars, had begun to appear again. The machines hummed faintly whenever Evan slept. The pattern was the same, 3 pulses, a pause and one long tone. That night, after Claire went to bed, Evan climbed the small ladder to the observatory dome. The cold air bit his face, but the stars above were clear and sharp. He pressed his hands to the glass and stared at a cluster of golden light on the horizon. It looked familiar though he didn't know why. Without thinking he whispered, "I see you." The stars shimmered. For a moment, one of them flared brighter than the rest, sending a faint beam of gold across the night. Evan stepped back, startled. The beam seemed to pass through the glass and touch him. He felt warmth spread through his body. His heartbeat quickened and something inside him stirred, a soft hum like music far away. He didn't understand it, but it felt comforting, like hearing his own name spoken by the universe itself. Downstairs, Claire woke to the sound of alarms. The outpost sensors flashed warnings. Energy surge detected. Source unknown. She ran to the control room and froze. The readings were off the charts. The signal that had once been faint now filled every system with gold light. She rushed up the ladder and found Evan standing under the dome, surrounded by a faint glow. "Evan," she shouted. "Step away from the window." He turned toward her, eyes glowing brighter than ever. "I didn't do anything," he said softly. The glow faded a little and he looked frightened. Claire hurried to him, grabbing his shoulders gently. "It's all right." "It's all right," she said, though her hands were shaking. "What's happening to me?" he asked. Claire looked at him for a long moment. She had kept the secret for 15 years, but she couldn't anymore. When you were born, she said, the council wanted to take you away. They said you weren't fully human. That something inside you came from before even their history began. He blinked. Before their history? She nodded. They called it the Skyborn line. No one knows what it means, only that long ago, a race of beings vanished, leaving their energy behind. Some believed their light might live again in another form. Evan frowned. You think I'm one of them? I don't know, she said softly. But I think they've found you again. The hum returned, stronger now, filling the dome. The stars outside seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. Claire ran to the control panel and tried to shut down the power, but the switches didn't respond. The entire outpost was glowing faintly gold. On the horizon, clouds shifted. A streak of light shot across the sky, not a meteor but something alive. It moved with purpose, too steady to fall. Another followed it, then another, until the sky filled with golden trails. Evan stood frozen, watching. They're coming, he whispered. Claire turned to him. Who? He looked at her with wide eyes, his voice trembling. The ones from my dreams. Far above, satellites across the system picked up the same signal. The Galactic Council sensors blared warnings. An ancient energy signature, thought lost for millennia, had reappeared. The data was clear. Something vast and powerful was moving toward human space. On Haven 12, deep inside a council archive, an old man read the report. His face went pale. It can't be, he whispered. The Skyborn were myths. But the readings didn't lie. The energy frequency matched perfectly with records older than civilization itself. The signal came from a region known only in legend, the Eternal Flame Belt, a dead zone where even machines refused to function. He sent one message to the High Council: the Fireblood has awakened. Back at the outpost, Claire watched as the lights in the sky grew larger. The shapes became clearer now, vast wings shining with fire that didn't burn. They moved like living constellations, graceful and immense. Evan felt something inside him respond. His eyes glowed bright enough to light the room. He could hear the voices again, not as words but as feelings, warmth, recognition, love. One voice rose above the rest, deep and soft. Child of flame. We have waited. Claire couldn't hear it, but she saw the change in his face. Evan, talk to me. What do you see? He turned toward her, his voice quiet. They're not angry. They're happy. The glow around him pulsed once more, then faded. The sky outside went still. The golden shapes vanished into the clouds. Everything returned to silence. Claire checked the readings. The energy vanished as quickly as it came. The machines went dark again. Evan looked down at his hands. They said my name, he whispered. Claire's voice was soft but steady. Then we don't have much time. The council will come again when they find out. Evan nodded slowly. He didn't feel fear. Instead, he felt something calm and certain deep inside him. For the first time, he understood what his dreams meant. The stars weren't watching him. They were waiting for him. He looked out the window one last time, the faint gold still glowing in his eyes. They're coming back, he said softly. And somewhere beyond the darkness, across the edge of the galaxy, the skyborn dragons began their long journey home. The storm above Haven 12 had not stopped since that night. The clouds glowed faintly gold, and sometimes, people swore they saw shapes moving inside them, shapes too large to be real. The Galactic Council sent ships to investigate, but every time they got close, their systems failed. The scanners went blind and the engines froze. Then the ships drifted back, powerless and silent. In the small observatory far below, Evan Miles stood beside Claire and stared at the sky. The light was growing brighter each day, like a sunrise that never ended. He could feel it in his bones. The voices in his dreams were clearer now, no longer whispers but full thoughts, like memories waking up inside him. They're almost here, he said softly. Claire turned from the console. You can feel them? He nodded. Yes. It's like they're calling me. Not with words. With warmth. Claire didn't answer. She had sent secret messages to a few trusted friends, old scientists who believed in the legends of the Skyborn, but she didn't know if anyone would believe her now. Every system in the observatory hummed with golden light. Even the cold metal walls seemed alive. That night, while Claire slept, Evan went outside. The air was still. The stars looked close enough to touch. He raised his hand and for a moment the sky shimmered. Then he saw it, something vast moving between the stars. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't metal or machine. It was alive. The shape was enormous, wings stretching wider than mountains, glowing with threads of fire that rippled like silk. Its body shone like molten gold, and its eyes burned the same color as Evan's. It glided through the air without sound, and as it passed, the snow melted, leaving steam rising from the ground. Evan fell to his knees, unable to breathe. The creature circled above him once, then landed gently on the plain beyond the observatory. Its claws left no marks, its light casting long shadows across the ice. A deep voice filled the air, not loud but felt inside his chest. Flameborn. Evan's mouth went dry. Who are you? The great creature lowered its head. I am called Arion, keeper of the first flame. We come from the sky of birth, where the stars were made. We come because the fire in your blood has awakened. Evan stepped closer, his heart pounding. You're dragons? Once your kind called us that, Arion said. We were the Skyborn, the guardians of light. We vanished when the stars grew silent. But one spark remained, hidden among humans. You are that spark. Evan couldn't speak. He had heard the word Skyborn from Claire before, but now it was real. Standing before him was proof, living, breathing proof. Arion's golden eyes softened. Do not fear. You are both human and Skyborn. Your light belongs to both worlds. From behind, Claire appeared, breathless and wide-eyed. Evan? She stopped when she saw the creature. Oh, my. Arion turned toward her, lowering his head slightly. You protected him. You kept the flame alive. For that, we honor you. Claire trembled but managed to speak. Why now? Why come back after so long? The dragon's wings shimmered. Because the stars are fading again. Darkness grows beyond the edge of this galaxy. The light must rise or all will fall into silence. Evan looked up. What does that have to do with me? You are our link, Arion said. Our blood once burned through every star. But when we left a seed, a bond. In you that bond breathes again. Through you the Skyborn will return to protect what once was ours. Before Evan could answer, the ground rumbled. In the sky human ships appeared, sleek, metallic and bristling with weapons. The council had found them. Unidentified energy source detected, said a voice from the speakers of one of the ships. Stand down or be neutralized. Claire gasped. No, they'll attack. Arion looked up calmly. They are afraid. They do not yet remember who we were. A bright light flashed from one of the ships, a warning shot. It hit the ground near the dragon, sending up a plume of dust. Evan stepped forward. Stop. Don't shoot. The air crackled. Evan's eyes glowed gold. The blast of light from the ships froze midair, held in place by something unseen. Then it vanished into nothing. The soldiers watching from orbit went silent. On the ground, Arion looked at him with quiet pride. The fire listens to you. Evan was shaking. I didn't mean to do that. You did not control it, Arion said. You called it. Fire is not only destruction. It is life, warmth, rebirth. Your flame will teach them that again. From the clouds more shapes appeared, dozens of them. Dragons of gold, silver and red, all descending through the sky like falling stars. The air filled with their hum, deep and powerful, echoing across the frozen plains. The council ships pulled back, stunned. Reports flooded through the command decks. They're not machines. They're alive. Claire watched in awe as the sky turned gold. The dragons filled the horizon, wings spread wide, their scales glowing like dawn. Evan stood among them, his eyes burning like twin suns. For a moment he didn't feel small anymore. He felt part of something vast, ancient and kind. Arion's voice echoed once more. The Skyborn return not to rule but to guide. But humans must choose if they will stand beside us, or turn away again. Evan looked toward the ships hovering in the distance. He knew fear still ruled the council, but he also knew fear could change. They'll understand, he said quietly. They have to. As he spoke, the dragons lifted their heads in unison. Their golden light spread across the planet, washing over the snow, melting it into clear water. The frozen plains bloomed for the first time in centuries, green and bright. Claire gasped. You're healing it. Arion nodded. Fire burns what is dead, but it also gives life. That is the truth they forgot. Evan reached out, touching one of the dragon's glowing scales. It felt warm, not hot, but alive like sunlight on his skin. Will they all come? He asked. Yes, said Arion. Across the stars our kin hear the call. The Flameborn has spoken. The age of silence is ending. Far above, the council fleets watched in stunned silence as light spread across the surface. For the first time in their history they saw dragons walking again, living legends from before their time. Evan turned back to Claire, who stood smiling despite her tears. They were waiting for you, she said softly. He looked up at the glowing sky, feeling peace fill him. No, he said gently. They were waiting for us. And as the golden dragons soared higher, their wings lighting the heavens, the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, as if the universe too had taken a breath it had been holding for ages. The Galactic Council sat in silence. Around the great round table, holograms of men and women from every human world flickered in the dim light. On the screen above them, a frozen image showed hundreds of dragons flying across Haven 12, their wings glowing like molten gold. No one spoke at first. The room buzzed only with the hum of machines. Finally, Counselor Hartley stood up. We all saw it, he said. The Skyborn are real. And they have returned. Across from him, a tall woman named Admiral Voss folded her arms. They are not gods. They are a threat. We can't just stand by while giant fire creatures enter human space. They didn't attack us, said Hartley. They healed the planet. The snow melted, crops grew overnight. Voss cut him off. And yet our systems failed. Entire fleets went dark. They carry energy beyond anything we understand. What if they decide we're not worth keeping alive? At the far end of the table, the Speaker of the Council, an older man with silver hair, raised a hand. Enough. We need facts, not fear. An aide stepped forward, projecting a chart. All evidence suggests these beings are linked to a single human, the boy called Evan Miles. Wherever he goes, the energy readings spike. It's as if he is the source of the Skyborn's power. The speaker frowned. So he's controlling them? Not exactly, the aide said. It's more like they're drawn to him. Responding to him. We believe he may carry their essence in his DNA. Murmurs filled the room. Someone whispered, a hybrid? Admiral Voss leaned forward. If that's true, we cannot let him remain free. One person holding that kind of power could end us all. Hartley shook his head. You're talking about a boy who saved a world. Maybe he's the key to peace, not war. But the speaker looked troubled. Peace or not, power that great always brings danger. Prepare a containment order. Meanwhile, far away on Haven 12, Evan stood with Claire on a cliff overlooking the plains. The dragons rested in the distance, their bodies glowing faintly under the gray sky. 4 days they had rebuilt the land, melting ice, purifying water, and leaving trails of living light wherever they flew. Evan felt at peace, but he could also feel the tension in the air. The dragons were restless. They knew the humans were afraid. Arion landed nearby, shaking the ground with a gentle tremor. The council watches, the great dragon said. Their ships wait beyond the moon. They do not trust what they cannot control. Claire looked up at the sky. They'll come soon. Yes, Arion said. And when they do, the choice will be yours, Flameborn. Evan frowned. Mine? Arion nodded slowly. You stand between our two worlds. The Skyborn will follow you, but humans must choose to believe you. If they see only fear, then fear will shape what comes next. That night, Evan couldn't sleep. He sat by the observatory window, staring at the stars. The same stars he had loved all his life now seemed so close and heavy. He whispered to himself, why did it have to be me? From behind him, Claire's voice was soft. Maybe because you were the one who would ask that question. He turned and smiled faintly. Do you think they'll listen to me? I think, she said, that sometimes one quiet voice can change everything. The next day the council's ships appeared. Hundreds of them hung in orbit, gleaming silver against the dark sky. A message came through, an order for Evan to surrender himself for evaluation and safety. Arion growled, smoke curling from his nostrils. They will not take you. Evan held up a hand. No fighting. Please. He walked forward out into the open snow. His golden eyes met the sky. If they want to talk, he said, then I'll talk. A beam of blue light descended, and 3 human figures appeared, officers in black and silver uniforms. The leader, Admiral Voss, stepped forward. Evan Miles, she said firmly. By order of the Galactic Council, you are to come with us. Evan stood tall, though his heart pounded. And if I don't? Voss glanced at the dragons behind him. Then you'll leave us no choice. Claire stepped between them. He hasn't done anything wrong. You're afraid of something you don't understand. Voss didn't look at her. Fear keeps us alive. Evan took a breath. You're wrong. Fear only keeps you small. He pointed at the dragons. They didn't come here to destroy us. They came because we called them. Because something in us remembered them. Voss frowned. You speak as if you know them. Evan looked toward Arion. I don't just know them. I am one of them, and one of you. For a moment, silence filled the air. Then the ground shook as Arion spread his wings. The sky glowed gold again, washing over the council soldiers. Their scanners blinked wildly, their weapons shutting down. Enough, said Arion's deep voice. No harm shall come today. The humans stumbled back, shielding their eyes from the light. Evan stepped closer, his voice calm. You see? Their power doesn't destroy. It heals. Look. He touched the ground, and where his hand rested, green grass grew through the snow. The officers stared in shock as warmth spread around them. This is what they bring, Evan said softly. Life, not war. Admiral Voss hesitated. Her hand lowered from her weapon. And what if we can't trust that? Then trust me, he said. Because I'm human. I want the same peace you do. Behind him, Claire whispered, Evan? Her eyes were wet, proud and fearful all at once. The Admiral looked at the boy, then at the dragons glowing behind him. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she turned to her men. Stand down. The tension broke. The golden light dimmed and the air became still. From above, a message came through the fleet's channel, a voice belonging to Counselor Hartley. Let him speak, he said. Let the world see this. For the first time, the Council's broadcast went public. Every colony, every ship, every world saw Evan standing in the light, speaking to the dragons. His words spread through every corner of human space. We don't have to fear what we don't understand, he said. We can learn. We can grow. The Skyborn aren't here to rule us. They came because we needed them, and maybe they need us too. Across the galaxy, people listened. Some cried. Some doubted. But for the first time, the story was no longer a secret. That night, when the Council ships left orbit, the stars over Haven 12 were calm again. The air was clear, the ice melted into shining rivers. Claire stood beside Evan, watching the dragons rest across the plains. You did it, she said softly. Evan smiled, though his eyes still glowed faintly gold. No, he said. We did it. The world is finally listening. Above them, Arion lifted his wings, the glow of dawn reflecting on his scales. This is only the beginning, Flameborn, he said. The fire of trust has been lit. Now it must burn. And for the first time in history, humans and Skyborn looked at the same sky, not as strangers but as one people under the same light. The light of the new dawn spread slowly across Haven 12. The storms that had once frozen the planet were gone, replaced by calm skies and warm wind. The snow melted into clear rivers that ran through fields of bright green grass. People from the nearby colonies began to return, drawn by the stories they had seen on the broadcasts, stories of dragons made of gold and a boy who spoke with fire in his eyes. Evan Miles stood on the same hill where he had once watched the empty sky, now filled with life. Beside him, Claire smiled faintly, leaning on her walking stick. Her hair had grown silver, but her eyes were still bright. You did what no one thought was possible, she said softly. Evan shook his head. I just listened, he said. The Skyborn did the rest. Below them, the dragons worked with quiet grace. Their wings stirred the air like gentle storms, spreading warmth across the plains. Everywhere they went, the ground shimmered with new growth. Trees rose from frozen soil and old rivers began to flow again. The people who had once feared them now watched in wonder. Children ran to the edges of the fields to see the golden giants up close. One boy waved at Arion, the largest of them all. The dragon lowered his head so the child could touch his nose. The boy laughed, his eyes wide with joy. They don't see monsters anymore, Claire said. They see miracles. Evan smiled, watching the scene. That's how it should have always been. The Council, now more cautious than proud, had sent envoys instead of soldiers. They arrived in small ships, carrying no weapons, only questions. Among them was Counselor Hartley, who had been one of the few to defend the Skyborn. He stepped forward and bowed slightly. Evan Miles, he said, the Council owes you an apology. We were afraid of what we didn't understand. Now we hope we can learn from you, and from them. Evan nodded. There's nothing to forgive. Fear is easy. Understanding takes time. Hartley looked up at the golden dragons circling in the distance. And what will they do now? Evan turned to Arion, who stood behind him, majestic and calm. The dragon's golden eyes met his, and Evan knew the answer without words. They will stay, he said. Not to rule, not to fight, but to heal. Over the next few weeks, the Skyborn spread across the colonies, visiting damaged worlds and burned-out stations. Wherever they went, they brought light. The stars that had long grown dim began to shine again. It was as if their presence had reminded the universe how to breathe. People began calling it the Age of Renewal. Evan traveled with Arion to other planets, speaking to leaders, scientists, and even children. He told them what the Skyborn had taught him, that fire was not meant to destroy but to give life. That warmth could come even from the fiercest flame. On one journey, he visited a desert world where nothing had grown for 100 years. The people there lived in caves and prayed for rain. Evan stood in the sand, closed his eyes, and whispered softly. A faint glow spread from his hands into the ground. Within minutes, the air filled with a warm breeze. Clouds formed where there had been none. When the rain finally fell, the people wept. Arion's deep voice filled the air. You see, Flameborn, the fire does not end, it begins. Evan looked up, smiling. And so does hope. Back on Haven 12, Claire spent her days writing down everything they had learned. Her small observatory had become a library of new knowledge, about energy, healing, and light. Children came from across the colonies to learn from her. She often told them, the universe isn't just stars and space. It's stories, and you are part of them. One evening, Evan returned from his travels. The sky above the observatory glowed gold with sunset. He found Claire sitting by the window looking out at the plains. You came back, she said with a smile. Always, he said softly. This is home. They sat in silence for a while, watching the dragons soar in the distance. The air shimmered faintly with warmth. Claire looked at him. You've grown into what you were meant to be. He smiled. I don't think it's about what I was meant to be. It's about what we can all become, if we stop being afraid. That night, Evan stood outside under the stars. He raised his hand to the sky, and a faint golden flame flickered in his palm. It didn't burn, it glowed softly like the first light of morning. Around him, the dragons circled higher, their wings catching the starlight. He thought of what Arion had told him many times. Fire remembers where it came from. For so long, humanity had seen fire as danger. But now they saw it as life again. Machines powered by skyborne energy lit the colonies without pollution. Frozen planets became gardens. Even deep space stations began to glow with soft warmth, alive in ways no one thought possible. Evan knew the work wasn't done. There would still be people who feared the Skyborn, and others who wanted to use their power. But he also knew something stronger had begun: understanding. Months later, the Galactic Council gathered once more. This time there were no arguments, no shouting. Instead, Evan stood beside Arion in the Great Hall, surrounded by humans and dragons alike. This is not the end of our story, he said, his voice calm and steady. It's the beginning of a new one. Fire and flesh, light and life, all made to grow together. The universe gave us the same stars to guide us. It's time we learned to share them. When he finished speaking, the room was silent. Then the Speaker of the Council, the same man who once ordered Evan's capture, rose from his chair. You've given us back what we lost, he said quietly. Faith. Evan smiled. Not in me. In each other. As the meeting ended, golden light filled the hall. The dragons sang, a low, soft hum that echoed through the walls, deep and peaceful. The sound spread across the stars, carried by energy and memory. People would remember that day as the first time humans and Skyborn stood together as equals. Years later, when Claire passed peacefully in her sleep, Evan built a garden around her observatory. He planted glowing trees that carried light from the Skyborn fire. Each night, the branches shone gently and their warmth filled the air. Sometimes he would sit beneath them, watching the stars and remembering her voice. Keep the flame gentle, Evan, she had told him once. That's how it heals. He smiled, looking at the horizon where dragons still flew, their light never fading. And far across the galaxy, wherever that light touched, worlds began to change. Deserts bloomed, ice melted, and even the darkest corners of space glowed faintly gold. It wasn't magic. It wasn't power. It was life finding its way again. And at the heart of it all stood one boy, born with dragon eyes, who taught the universe that the fire within could heal as easily as it once burned. The flame lived on, gentle and bright. It was not the end. It was a new beginning. The flame that heals.